today we have Brittany Haynes, Debbie, what's your last name? I'm so sorry, I do not want to
Oh,
miss
no worries. No worries. Abalobo.
Evalobo, Carol Wexler, and Hannah Heller, and they're going to go around and start by introducing themselves and talk about a little bit what they do. So Brittany, do you want to go first? Oh, Brittany, we can't hear you. It's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, I'll keep this relatively brief, but it's good to join you guys. It's always good to be back at Grady, though this is obviously not quite the same. But like you said, my name is Brittany Haynes. I graduated from Grady back in 2009. Was a magazines major and knew for pretty early on in my time there that I would go into PR. So that's what I do today. I have been in agency for quite a while. I spent most of my career at Edelman between Atlanta and New York. And today I'm approaching 3 years at a company called ShareCare. We're a digital health company. We're co-founded by Dr. Oz and Jeff Arnold, who's the same guy who created WebMD back in 1998 when a lot of you might not have even been born. So anyway, I do communications for the team, and we are a company that provides several different services and programs and digital tools to help people manage their health, whether it's just to improve it or manage a chronic condition like diabetes or heart disease. And we cover several different things in between. This morning, we just announced an integration with Alexa, so you can ask. Actually, she tends to chime in whenever I say that. But she can answer your questions about health and well-being now from ShareCare. So anyway, glad to be here and share some perspective from my professional journey and then also back from school.
All right, thank you so much. We're definitely excited to hear all about that. Debbie, what about you?
Hi guys, my name is Debbie Abalobo, and I graduated from Grady with a degree in PR and the new media certificate. I currently work at Coke, where I'm responsible for crisis, so really fun stuff. Additionally, do a lot of work around brands. I've been at Coke for about nearing 4 years now, joined the company in New York before coming to Atlanta. Previously have been in communications and marketing, but across a variety of industries. So from telecommunications to automotive and motorsports to now CPG. But excited to talk to the team, to the Grady team, and thrilled to see familiar faces and excited to have some great dialogue with the group.
Awesome, thank you so much. Hannah, what about you? Hannah, you might, yeah.
Muted, classic. So I am a Grady alum as well. I actually graduated and then went to the Summer at the Circus program at the Creative Circus, where I now work as the Director of Career Services. I graduated from the Creative Circus in 2016 with a degree in copywriting, where I went and worked as a copywriter for a little bit at some Atlanta agencies, and then went back into the recruitment side for creative.
Nice. Okay, Kara, what about you?
Hey guys, I'm Kara Wexler. I graduated in 2016 with a undergrad degree in advertising and the new media certificate, like Debbie mentioned. I was also very involved during school. I was a part of Ad Club, leading Talking Dog during my senior year. I was involved with Peabody Awards and TED. I was a Grady girl through and through. And then post-graduation, I moved up to New York City, worked at 360i, which is a digital agency. I know you guys heard from Maddie in an earlier session, and had a great time there. I worked specifically on the Pernod Ricard business, doing media buying and planning. And then specifically, if you guys aren't familiar with Pernod Ricard, I was working mostly on spirits accounts like Absolut Vodka, Jameson Irish Whiskey. And then I moved into a very different industry and moved into the beauty space, where I now work at L'Oreal USA, specifically on Kiehl's skincare brands, which is really exciting.
All right, thank you so much, ladies. I bet you guys have a lot of insight, and we would love to start off with that. So, how has your company adapted to the changes presented by COVID-19? And if we want to keep going in this order, Brittany, Debbie, Hannah, Kara, that would be awesome.
Sure. Well, we're starting with the girl in the healthcare company, so that's a loaded question. We've definitely pivoted in a way that, you know, I think we certainly saw our duty. We always talk about a promise of caring for people's well-being, and you know, we also have, you know, our company started as a content organization, compiling, you know, answers to questions and consumer questions, and answering them from, you know, world leading doctors, nonprofit research organizations in health. And, you know, back to those roots, we kind of flipped that for the second time and really became a newsroom. So those folks on that team, and they're veteran journalists. They come from NBC and Women's Day, CNN. They're from all over the gamut. They just became a news organization, and we're pumping out content constantly, multiple articles, videos, slideshows a day. And that's not back in March when everybody was truly freaking out. That was back in like December, January, when they knew, you know, this was becoming a really big threat. So we're exhausted. On the comm side, we've been supporting, you know, I just got to say it's rapid innovation like I've frankly never seen in my 10 years of working. You know, we've launched a telehealth platform. We sped that up to do it in weeks versus months to a year plus. We've launched virtual screeners for COVID-19, virtual consults. We did a partnership with Augusta University, the state of Georgia, to launch an online hub to help kind of update folks on the latest policies in the state of Georgia and some of the local policies as well, plus different tools and resources. We've acquired 2 to 3, I'm losing count now. We might have acquired 3 companies since COVID-19 in the realm of healthcare AI, one in the area of behavioral and mental health, which, you know, again, kind of seeing ahead of the curve, we know that we're all struggling. It's just a fact. So we've made products for anxiety reduction, some of those unhealthy habits that are being really exacerbated by the pandemic situation. We're offering digital solutions so that you can help get that in check when you may not be as able to see your doctor as you used to be. So that's just a sampling. I scratched the surface on the things that we've done to pivot and respond to COVID. But as the PR team, we're supporting everyone. And we have a very diverse business. Like I said, you know, we have editorial, we have teams that make the tools and the technology. We have, you know, we serve insurance companies. We serve our actual members, people like you and me. So we've just been hitting it hard on a lean team. And then on the other side, you know, when we talk about how we've adapted to COVID in terms of taking care of our actual employees and ourselves, we've all pretty much been remote since late March. So this, I actually just moved into a new house right before COVID. That's why this room is a little bare. I've only painted it, but you know, we've all been remote, working from home, just to practice distancing and adhere to public health guidelines, which we hold to be a standard. And then, you know, as much as we can, you know, we're trying to take care of ourselves, give ourselves a little extra time, you know, get help where we can. But it is, I've just never been this busy this long in my life. Yeah.
What an interesting perspective, being in the literally midst of it all. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Debbie, what about you?
Yeah, so like Brittany, we are also working remote. I think taking a step back, I think what the pandemic has done to a lot of industries is just accelerated everything. And I think that's what's happened also within Coke. So just in terms of, at the onset of the pandemic, I think every organization just wanted to ensure that their folks were safe. So I think that's the first priority. Additionally, as a global company, we have a footprint in communities across the world. So we also wanted to make sure that we're taking care of those communities that we serve. So from a giving side, we've provided more than $100 million in philanthropic giving, and we continue to do more. But I think what would be pertinent to this group is is the job market, right? So I think at Coke, we paused hiring, but there are specialized fields that that we're looking to hire. But with that being said, what I'll say is not everything is going to be paused forever. So my guidance during this pandemic is just to ensure that you continue to work your network. So you have previous classmates that you've had before that are in the workplace, connect with them, and not just connect with them because you want something. Genuinely connect with them and try and understand what's happening. What's an industry doing? So if you're interested in CPG and you want to learn more, how is that adapting? How are things changing? How's hiring changing, right? So I think it's going to be quite a complicated environment in terms of navigating an industry, because, or even like from a geographic level, right? Because everything is so different, and that's fine. But what I'll say is that industries are changing. But at the same time, maybe this is the crisis person in me, but I find that crisis always presents an opportunity. And this opportunity for me, as I think about, if I were in your position now, I think the opportunity is to stand out because you have the ability to do things that ensure that, one, you're learning, that you're showing curiosity and all those pieces. But additionally, it's almost like you have the ability to dissect, what the future could look like. Design the job that you want, because I think that we don't know what 5 years will look like, what 10 years will look like. So you need to be driven by the things that interest you, and you need to explore and understand and all those pieces. But I think in general, the pandemic will have ebbs and flows in terms of what's happening, and I think we have to be nimble enough to navigate that.
That's a wonderful perspective, and I know our students really will appreciate that advice. Hannah, do you have anything?
Yeah, so I actually think Debbie really teed me up for my answer pretty well about kind of placement, and I can speak to what the school is doing in order to make students feel safe coming on campus. We actually have been open. The staff has been on the ground since May, and the students came back July 6th. And that's just because of the business model of what creativity really needs and how creatives really need to start their education there, feeling the textiles. You can't take intro to art direction and not be able to learn about design and touching things. So that's kind of how COVID affected us. We are 30% on ground with classes and 60% remote. But on a grander scheme of how it affects my job in placing the students once they've graduated from the circus, I would say that COVID, the biggest impact it has had on me and or my industry is with freelance for creatives, which goes back to what Debbie was saying about networking. Freelance is not something I generally would have told a junior creative to start out as, just because you really do want to get in the agency or in the company. You want to learn everyone. You want to see how, everything is made, how everything is working, work really closely with strategy and production. But it's been very interesting because COVID has widened the pool of talent, which I actually think has been really great for juniors, because you guys can get an internship at a kick butt agency in LA or San Francisco while still being in Georgia, which is not an opportunity that any of us had because of situation. So it's kind of nice. It's made businesses kind of reevaluate how they are sourcing talent. And no longer do you have to be geographically where they are in order to learn from them or to contribute to their business. So I would definitely say that has been hands down one of the best things that I think students should really capitalize on, is reaching out to people. There's no better time than when you are a student to reach out and say, hey, I don't know, kind of figure out what people do. That was something that I know that I was really embarrassed about when I graduated from college, not knowing the options of what there was to do in the world. And I think I get really excited when students do reach out and kind of say, what are you doing? And we can have a conversation about what you like to do. If you are really if you have tactile things that I think would be better for being a strategist, we can put you in touch with people that we know, like everyone on this call, we all do something different. So yeah, I would definitely say reaching out to networks and freelance jobs are kind of like the two main things that I would say have changed since COVID.
That's phenomenal advice. Thank you so much. Kara, do you have anything?
Yes, I think everyone teed it up quite nicely, and we're all going through similar things, especially working in New York City when COVID's impact hit hardest in March and a lot of people left the city. We really had to adapt with the technologies that we had. And fortunately, we had Microsoft Teams and all of these different technologies already in place that allowed us to be very collaborative while working remotely, especially being on a marketing team and working with different counterparts. We are on calls all day long to engage with each other and brainstorm and bounce ideas off of each other. So it does become quite difficult to not be in person, but I think we all got used to it. And then to first speak to how the business adapted specifically. So Kiehl's.com became a huge focus for us as a business. Previously, Kiehl's is very rooted in the in-store experience, and it's skincare. It's very tactile. So the idea is that you go into store, there's a guided experience, someone's taking you through, you get to try the products, feel how it is on your skin. And unfortunately with COVID, we can no longer rely on that in-store component. So it's been really interesting trying to bring that to life in the digital space. And one phrase that I really love at L'Oreal is this bias toward action, which means that it's all about focusing on how do we move forward. So focusing less on just sitting on the strategy piece, because sometimes you can go down too long of a rabbit hole on that, and really focusing on how do we move quickly and test and learn to figure out what is working and what's not. So that's been really exciting to see a lot of projects that had a much longer timeline originally in mind. And then post-March, everything has been expedited incredibly. So I'd say there's huge opportunities within e-commerce. And one thing that's really interesting in the industry, especially when looking at e-commerce specifically, a lot of these trends that were predicted to happen in 10, 15, 20 years, they're happening at a rapid pace now, where we thought that consumer behavior would change eventually, and back in the day, people didn't think they would buy clothes online. They wanted to feel it in person. But now a lot of these industries are figuring out how do you bring that experience to life in the digital space. And then speaking to L'Oreal as more of the work culture and the ways that things have changed, one thing that's been really great. So L'Oreal was actually one of the first businesses, and it's still one of the first businesses in New York to reopen our offices. So we reopened in late June. They had a lot of added safety measures. We're at 50% capacity. So you go in 1 week or the next, and then you have a week off, which is great. And then ultimately, it has been really nice to see your coworkers again and have some of that human interaction. You're more likely to just overhear a conversation. So I think for me, I learned that while I do enjoy the flexibility that working from home allows, it's also really nice to be able to see your coworkers in person and overhear those conversations that you wouldn't have otherwise been included on. But now you can develop your own strategies based around that little tidbit that came from someone who sits near you. And then really exciting, we just came out with a new policy, at least through the end of the year, in order to give us a little bit more work-life balance. For the company, we have summer Fridays that ended on Labor Day, and they ended up extending it, which means that you get half of the Fridays off, or you get to take all Fridays as a half day. And that has been so essential. So when you're thinking about the work perks and the type of life that your company is allowing you to have between work and life, it is really nice because that gives you a day to schedule all your doctor's appointments or run all of your errands and take care of all of those personal stuff, so it doesn't have to constantly overwhelm you throughout the week.
That's awesome to hear. I think the general theme that everyone has experienced is really pivoting and innovating the way of how they're working or what their company's doing. So with that being said, how do you have any advice for students who are graduating in December or May who are planning on entering the job search? So kind of just thinking along the lines of how can these students who are used to or have been prepped for the past 3 years going into searching for jobs, how can they best adapt to these circumstances? Debbie, do you want to start? Or not Debbie, I'm so sorry.
No, I'll start because
Okay.
Brittany, I feel like being first all the time is a tough spot.
Okay.
What I'll say is, look, the pandemic obviously has changed how our behaviors, right? And the world around it. But I would say, like, that doesn't mean that you should stop, looking for a job or networking or doing the things that were working pre-pandemic, because those things are still valid. Because relationships, this industry, I would say more than a lot of various industries, relationships matter and networking matters. And I know it's a broken record because I think networking is one of those things that people often say over and over and over again. And then you feel strange because you're like, well, I don't know this person, right? But I think you have to develop a strategy on your networking. And it's not about, again, you have the network already. Start there. And then from there, start to understand what piques your interest, and then start to expand. But ultimately, in my mind, the pandemic is just it just provides, it just forces us to take more initiative than anything else, right? So you have to take the initiative to do research, understand what's happening with industries you're interested in terms of different fields, or even with companies. Coke is an example, right? So we're pausing hiring. I could say that there's probably specific areas where they are hiring. So just go deeper, understand a little bit more, network, and also do the little things right. So resume, no typos, right? Be as succinct as possible. Understand exactly what you want to do, because I think when people are asking you questions and you're trying to come up with something that you think they want to hear, that's very easy to identify. And if you don't have an answer, that's fine too. Just say why you want to have the conversation, or why, just the why. I think people, like human beings, want interaction. I think you have to take the initiative to provide value in those conversations. And when I say that, it's about, again, not just asking what you can give me, but how we can build a relationship that's not just one-off and transactional.
That's amazing advice. Thank you so much for sharing. Brittany, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm inclined to lean toward, I think you guys have undoubtedly gotten lots of great advice today and over the years on just our industry. I'm kind of inclined to answer it from like when I was your age and kind of panicked because it was it was a recession, and nobody else was really hiring then either, and I was freaked out because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 3 months out from graduating. I don't have any job prospects, but everybody sure wants a free intern. So just from that perspective, I would just say, keep doing what you're doing, all the things that you're doing to get experience on campus, get internships while you can, or volunteer where you can apply the skills that you'll need for when you get your first job, and your interests at the same time. I would say don't get yourself married to what your entry into the career, into your career will look like. Be very flexible. For me, I had so many internships in college. I started my freshman year. I did not expect to graduate and go into an internship that paid $7. That was a big deal at the time. I paid $7 an hour and ended after 4 months, didn't lead to a job. again, recession, and that company was in construction, which just tanked. It was an agency that focused on commercial and residential building. And then, after that, I found myself applying for jobs that would have been my 6th internship. I was applying for internships after that, and then eventually got a call from a company I applied to probably 3 months prior to that. They said, look, we got your internship resume, thought it looked fantastic, but we felt like you'd be a lot better as an assistant account executive. So we're calling you now because we have an opening. Let me know if you'd be cool with that instead of an internship. Of course I would. So, I didn't set out to go into healthcare PR. It's funny because still 11 years later, I'm still in it. But I wanted to continue to get that experience. I had it going for me that I was very nimble and just hungry. So I would say keep that up. Don't, like someone was saying earlier, if the job's in, Georgia, you really want to be in New York later. Don't get too bogged down in it. Things are just really changing. The paradigm for being employed and what it means to build your career somewhere is changing. So I'd say stay nimble, but remember the core. You're trying to get your foot in the door. You're trying to get good experience, and your career will last decades ahead of you. So don't, I've said enough there. But I'd also say, on the personal front, we talked a lot about just networking, and I think the whole pandemic has opened up the conversation about resiliency, what it means to lean in and get those energy stores where someday you may not be able to, like spending time with your loved ones, building your network when you don't necessarily need it, because you'd hate to be in a position where suddenly looking for a job, I don't know anybody, I lost the connection, that's that cool job at Coke. What was that girl's name again on the panel? Or, oh, right, Sharecare. So I would say just keep at it, because you never know. Just like when you'll be grateful that you're in good health because of the threat of a public health situation like this, or, you'll need the folks who you met, the professors from Grady, the Career Center contacts. I'd say keep up with those. And the last thing I'll just add is, depending on your personal situation, this is such an unprecedented time for even our parents. Depending on how old your grandparents are, they may have seen it to some degree. But, I would have, again, thinking just myself, I would have those conversations with my family or my support network now and talk about, okay, what does it look like? What's my goal? It may seem like I'm at home not working right now, or, I'm taking a gap in school, but here's my plan. Here's the support I'll need from you. I think that having those open conversations, especially at this age when you are trying to get off the launch pad and into independence financially and in terms of your career, I would say be prepared to lean on those support networks, your parents, your family, whatever it is, potentially into more of the future than you may have originally anticipated.
All right, thank you so much. All right, Hannah, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, so I spend most of my days talking about this question. So the thing that I would tell you guys from a creative standpoint, I don't know how much the curriculum has changed at UGA since I was in the advertising program, but creative and working on my portfolio was not something that I got at the time, which is why I went to the Creative Circus. But I would say that if you are self-motivated and self-driven and you have created a portfolio for yourself while you are at school, that doesn't end when school ends. Your portfolio is never done. You will never love it. You can make a Super Bowl ad and you still are one day going to be like, ugh, I can't believe I did that one thing that one time. So I will tell you that that's the number one thing. Don't stop making. Everything that is happening right now should be motivation to put into your portfolio. And recruiters and creative directors want to know who you are. They don't just want you to make an ad. If anything, advertising is switching to a content-driven industry. and they want to know who is making the content, not just the Doritos that you're selling them or whatever. So that would be my first point about your portfolio. My second point about reaching out, definitely reach out to the points that were made. It's okay to just even check in. If you have one conversation with me and you hear me reference Doritos, you can send me an email later being like, oh, I saw this thing and I thought of you. That is a way of reaching out to somebody that is non-invasive, but you are staying current in my brain. So one day when I am looking to hire somebody, I remember the person that reached out to me off of the ADPR forum that we did. So that's another great way. The other thing that I would say is a detriment to people that they don't really think about is how much news and how much information you have coming at you so quickly. Get on Agency Spy, get on Adweek, and pay attention to the headlines that are happening. You know, if you see that Deutsch laid off 20% of their creative department, it's probably not a good idea for you to email me saying, hey, I just graduated, I'm looking for a job, because I'll probably say, read the room or the headlines, and not a good time. But that being said, you also don't have to have a job opening in order to start thinking about a job. You can email people at companies and say, I'm very invested in your company. Show me what you've learned about the company. Show me what time you have taken to invest in my company. And I'm going to want to create a position for you when the time comes, because it's all about budgets. That's what hiring is. As long as we have the money, we can hire you. And as we all know, COVID took a hit with money. So don't get discouraged by the fact that a job is not available. Really focus on the legwork that goes into that job. You really want to show people that have hiring power why they should hire you, and the job will follow.
Thank you so much for sharing. I know that everyone really appreciates that advice as well. Kara?
Yeah, so I think I completely agree with what everyone has said at more of a high level of how you go about networking and approaching the process. So I want to also speak to some hard skills that you can develop that I think are so crucial. So specifically, one thing that I wish I did more of in school is really beefed up my analytics and Excel skills. And you may think that you don't want to go into analytics or something that is very literal in the analytical field, but exactly as Hannah mentioned, everything is very data and content driven, but you need to have that backing to explain your position. So even if you're doing organic social media, even if you're doing PR, you need to show the numbers behind, we want to do a press release for XYZ subject, and we are seeing this trending search term, and that's how we're going to pitch it, because we know that people are starting to be more and more interested in this topic. So being able to speak to data is so crucial. And specifically within analytics and Excel, there are so many great free resources. So specifically Coursera and Udemy have amazing free resources. Some you can pay for if you really want to dig a little deeper, but I think at this point you can also keep it fairly surface level and just be able to speak the language. And then to that point, I think learning to speak the language of your counterparts is so helpful once you get into the job. So being able to speak the creative language. So for example, I'm doing media and buying and planning. I am buying a Facebook ad, but I have to be able to tell the creative team what I need and make sure that that is something that follows our best practices. But the fact that I took a Photoshop class as part of my new media certificate, and that allowed me to understand the words so that when I'm speaking to the creative team and they're using specific terminology, I know what they're saying and I'm able to speak it back. And similarly, I would say that's important for creative, analytics, finance, any other topic that you think could be around your position, even if it's not exactly what you will be doing yourself. It's so helpful. And then to my point earlier, if you can just understand the basics of e-commerce and follow the trends in the industry, that will be really, really helpful. And the more that you can speak to understanding that, I think it will also help shine in an interview when you're talking to the trends of the industry. I'm looking back at my notes. I think that covered it all.
All right, well, unfortunately, we are all out of time, but I wanted to thank all of you for coming and sharing some wonderful insight and advice. And that's my dryer going off. If you can hear it in the background, I'm so sorry. But thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with all of us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Good luck, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.